What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to show you my wide body design and we're going to start cutting into the car. Okay, so here is my paper wide body. So I have been working on this the last week or so, constantly changing it, messing around with different styles and designs. And by no means is this, totally a final design, but I am starting to get close to what I want. So I'm at a pretty good spot with the design. I'm sure I will be tweaking things. A lot of the cuts in the paper are pretty rough. But this is basically close enough to start moving forward with modifying the original body. And just as an FYI, what I used here is kind of like a thicker paper. It's kind of like a poster material. I think it's 0.03 inches thick. It worked pretty well because it bends pretty easy, but it is rigid enough to kind of support itself. If I just use regular paper, it would probably be a little too flimsy to do something like this. Also, the advantage of using that poster board, you can get it in larger sheets. I got a 22 by 28 inch sheet, so that's a lot less cutting and taping together that you have to do. But yeah, this is the rough design that I'm thinking of. Fairly simple because I have to keep in mind manufacturing and how exactly I'm gonna do this. I do not have any sheet metal equipment at all. The one thing I did buy in prep for this was a roller. So this is a little 1 foot roller, so I can make some gradual curves. That would be for these top pieces here, so I could at least put some curve into the sheet metal, because without that I'd be kind of creating a lot of internal stresses, so it probably wouldn't shape the way I want if I didn't actually roll it. So that's the only piece of equipment I bought. Traditionally, to make flares that would be more at an angle and not straight off like this, you would need a bunch of different machines, like an English wheel, a shrinker, a stretcher, things like that. Those can be very costly, and I also have no skill around that. I'd love to learn someday, but right now I didn't really want to spend thousands of dollars on some machines, and then there would be a large learning curve for that. So I'm going to stick to more or less what I know. So basically flat sections here. Going to be some complex cuts to match the body. But otherwise, other than just doing a little bit of rolling on that top one, the sides are basically flat. So this will be a pretty simple construction. So with keeping that in mind, that's a little bit what drives the design as of now. But that's kind of okay because I did want more of a sharp design because this car is so round. I wanted to add some more aggressive touches to it. So having the sharper corners and it kind of jutting off the body there, it gives it a lot more of an aggressive look in my opinion. And that's kind of what I was going for with adding this wide body. So now that I have this basic shape, I generally know where it's gonna sit. So now what I'm gonna do is mark on the car roughly where these sit front and back so that I can see how much I can really cut out of the original fenders, because you saw last time, like the front is sitting right on the tire and the rear is also pretty close to sitting on the tire. With the original body. So clearly I'm gonna have to be doing some cutting. So once I have those lines on the car, I know exactly how much I can cut off, and then I'll determine, is that enough to get like full lock steering. I also might try to drive the car after I do the cutting so that I can make sure I'm not rubbing anywhere, so I can really dial in, do I have it at the right height? And then once I get all the cutting done on the body, I will reattach these paper mock-ups. And then I can fine tune exactly what I want the new fenders to look like. Like I said, right now they're pretty rough. So I'll get those looking perfect, and that will then create the patterns I will need to cut out the sheet metal. I've now got everything marked up. So the top line you see is roughly where the new fenders are gonna sit. and then the inner line is where I plan to do the cutting. And I did go ahead and mark the other side as well, so I can cut them both at the same time. Because if I just cut one side and I went to try to turn, then the other side would just hit. So I pretty much have to cut both sides at the same time so that I can ensure that I'm clearing everything the way I want. So now I'll throw this thing on the lift and I can take the front wheels off so then we can start cutting. Okay, I got a good amount of cutting done. It went very smoothly. I started using just the Dremel at first on the front bumper here. It works, it just goes very slow. And since I do have so much experience using the angle grinder, I went ahead and used the angle grinder. I don't know if I would suggest doing that because it's definitely a little bit more difficult to control, a much bigger wheel, harder to do curves, but it did work out pretty well for me. So I used that on the front bumper, and then I went up here on the hood, and then I used it on this little side panel. So I was able to get a pretty clean, consistent cut. So this here, I left these tabs because I know I'm gonna need some point right there to attach the fenders, the new fenders. So we'll see if that's gonna be a problem as far as rubbing with the tire. It does look pretty close right now, but I know I can adjust that, and I might end up adjusting up my fenders a little bit. And as you saw, I am not getting full lock yet. I did get a lot more angle, but I am just slightly starting to hit there. You can see it's actually starting to almost tuck in. So I don't think I have to take off a whole lot more, but we'll see. So it starts to hit right there, and then it also starts to hit in the rear at about the same amount of angle. So you can see over here, just starts to hit, doesn't quite tuck in. So we're gonna need to take off a little bit more back here, and then also a little bit more on the front bumper. But as far as on top of the tire, I think we're looking pretty good. I won't know for sure until I actually drive the car, hit some bumps, and we'll see if we do rub at all up there on the hood. And I also did trim out all of the inner fender liner kind of at the same spot so that that wouldn't be rubbing either. So I want to get an update out to you guys. So that's going to be it for today, but next time I'll make those few trims in the front and the rear, make sure I can get full lock in the steering, and then I will move on to the rear. That should be fairly straightforward, pretty similar to the front. So then once I get the rear and the front looking good, at least static, then I can go and drive the car. And once I drive the car, I'll see if we have any more rubbing issues. And then from there, we can start putting the paper mock-up back on. And once that's looking good, we can transfer it to sheet metal, and then we'll start building the real flares.